What's it all about? What's the purpose of life? An ambitious topic, to be sure. Last night, my wife and I were taking our nightly either pre-dinner or post-dinner stroll around the neighborhood. She had just logged off from another frustrating afternoon at work. And out of the blue, she popped off with, "What's the purpose of all this? Why are we even here?" I could hear the frustration in her voice. And rather than immediately assuage her angst, I used it as yet another opportunity to preach my agnosticism or possibly even downright atheism. She was raised a Catholic by some fairly devout parents and is surrounded by siblings who are extremely devout. So she has some pretty deeply ingrained beliefs, faith, whatever, however you want to classify it. I, on the other hand, have been a pretty consistent atheist ever since I rather famously told the pastor of the church I grew up in, this would be in the early 80s, that I didn't see any difference between what their congregation, his congregation, practiced and what the well-known cults of the time, including the Jonestown cult, where there was a mass suicide in Guyana. I basically told him that, down there, that those cults, they recruited members. Members gave everything they had to the cult. Then they drank the Kool-Aid. Yes, that's where the phrase "drank the Kool-Aid" came from. And I told him in front of the church council, "You're asking me to drink the grape juice once a month and, give you 10% of my paper route money. So it's just a difference in degree, not a difference in substance." And I still think that's kind of funny that I did that, but it's what I believed, what I've always really believed, despite many periods in my life where I have actively tried to believe in God. Mostly the Christian God. I've joined churches and even been on councils and joined prayer groups and read the Bible several times. Had to do it again and later in life in my 40s when I got my college degrees from a Lutheran university. And it just doesn't stick for me. So my answer after that tangent was, that's what God is for. That's why man created God, to answer the question, what's it all about? What's our purpose? It's man's psychology that we can't stand loose ends. We can't stand unanswered questions. They're like a hangnail or a toothache. We've got to resolve them. So we resolved it by creating a creator who created us with his purpose in mind. And then he told us about that purpose in Scripture, right? Which has been handed down intergenerationally, traditionally. So that's the religious perspective. And then there's the opposite end of the spectrum, which is just pure nihilism, which is there's nothing. Nothing means anything in the grand scheme of things. We're all just the same protons, neutrons, and electrons that make up the ether of the universe. And once we're gone, we're gone. No heaven, no hell, no judgment, no consequences in the afterlife. I don't necessarily subscribe to that as a useful way to think about life either. which I think is what a lot of very apologistic religious types think that atheists think, to use labels. I take a much more humanistic approach. I take great pleasure in my relationships in life, and it gives me pleasure to experience things and to treat others with respect and dignity, and to be a person of integrity and all of that. So it's an end unto itself, just maximizing the experience of my own personal existence is my purpose in life. So we are all free to choose our purpose. And some people choose to follow religion, a religion, and use that to define their purpose. And, I'm not ridiculing anyone who does that or judging anyone who does that. If it works for you and gives your life meaning and comfort and fulfillment, that's fantastic. It just doesn't work for me, no matter how many times I've tried. So I say all that to say, what's the meaning? What's the purpose? It's up to you. You get to choose. So choose wisely. And then execute on those choices. And I, with all humility, admit I have often chosen unwisely, and I have many times failed to execute on the wise choices, which is probably not unique to me. I would imagine that most people feel the same way. But 57, be 58 in a few months. Not giving up. Not giving up yet. I have loved ones who have given up, and they're gone now, some of them. Some of them are still here, but they've obviously given up. And it's unfortunate, and it imposes a burden on those of us who haven't and those of us who care about them. So I'm sad that they've gone that way. I'm sad that they feel that way. I wish we didn't have to bear that emotional burden of them, and I intend to not ever lay that burden on the shoulders of anyone who cares about me. So, once again, choose wisely, execute with persistence and faith, as ironic as that sounds, and never give up.